and I will be chairing this session today. So today we have our session titled Sectoral Impacts of Climate Change and Green Jobs, part of this conference titled A World Beyond Crisis, Climate Solutions That Work. I myself is an economist, and we often consider the climate change as the greatest market failure of our time. This is a textbook example of negative externalities, all the climate change induced adverse impacts that we can see in the communities, in the different sectors of the economy. All of these are classified as, most of these are classified as the negative externality because these are not internalized through the pricing system. The Stern review estimated that inaction could annually cost up to 20% of the global GDP, while the strong mitigation would cost only around 1% per year. This trade-off implicates that the challenges of the climate change are not only the environmental challenges, these are the economic challenges. So all the policies should be classified as the economic policies as well. If we consider the three major sectors of any economy, like the agricultural sector, the health, and the livelihoods that belong every other sectors. So if we consider the agricultural sector, there has been a study, and it says that for 1 degree Celsius increase in the global warming, the yield of the staple crops reduces by 5 to 15%. And this results in both productivity loss as well as the distributional crisis. I mean, last week I was in Satkira, and we have seen that due to the change of the climate and the intrusion of the salty water from the sea into the, inside the communities, for the last few decades, they cannot really produce any crops in there. And most of the families, most of the households are relying on shrimp or fishery. The problem with the fishery sector is it is seasonal. So during the time of like December to February, the male household members are not there. So all the issues that comes with storms and meteorological hazards disproportionately affects the female members of the households. So we can see there is a distributional change as well in terms of the workload, in terms of the family burden and everything. Not only that, this has been increasing the inequality because before the households were relying on crops, now the households are relying on day labor, wage that are coming from the day labor because they cannot own a shrimp farm. That's pretty expensive. So there is an increasing inequality as well that is coming, that is induced from the climate change. Also, we can see that across the world, there is a recent study by Lancet Countdown. So Lancet Countdown says that due to the heat exposure alone, there has been a cut of labor hours by 10% in the tropical economies. So you can see the impact, the negative impact of the climate change has been everywhere. And it has been increasing in the year, throughout the years. One silver lining is the climate change induced disruptions open up a lot of pathways for green jobs or green transformation. According to a recent study by ILO, a transition to a green economy can create 24 million new jobs globally by 2030, given there are adequate policies, there is the carbon pricing, there is the renewable energy incentives, and there is enough investment in education and skill upgrading or skill improvement. So in our today's session, we will primarily explore two themes. One is how the climate change is just transforming the key sectors and how the green jobs can turn vulnerability into opportunity. So each presenter, before we begin, let me just briefly outline some rules for the discussions and the session, and the presentations we'll have. So each presenter will get 80 minutes to give their presentation. After each presentation, sorry, not 80 minutes, 8 minutes. My apologies. 80 minutes, it will take 3 days in that case. So 8 minutes for their presentation, and each presentation will be followed by 5 minutes question and answer session. I will give a 2-minute remaining reminder whenever the 6 minutes is gone for a presentation. And I kindly request everyone in the audience to hold on your questions until the presentation ends. So that's about the rule. So after we are done with all the presentation, then our honorable judges will give their remarks or feedback on the presentation as well. So without any further ado, I would like to invite our first presenter, Darlene Mbande Nakoma from Malawi, to start her presentation. Apologies for the wrong pronunciation. And she will be presenting her paper titled Weathering Change, Understanding Household Shifts in the Age of Climate and Energy Crisis. So Ms. Nakoma, you can start your presentation now. Thank you.
Good morning. Sorry, will I be sharing the screen or will it be projected?
Can you ask the question again?
I don't see my presentation. I'm sharing it.
So yes, we can see your presentation on the screen.
Okay, thank you. My camera does not seem to work. For whatever reason, it has stopped. However, I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you clearly. Thank you.
All right. Good day. My name is Darlene Mbande Nakoma from the University of Malawi. And the title of my research is Weathering Change, Understanding Household Shifts in the Age of Climate and Energy Access. Climate shock significantly exacerbate structural transformation. But what is structural transformation? It exists all around us. It is the movement by a country's sector from agriculture to non-agricultural sectors, including manufacturing and high-wage jobs. At the micro level, it is the movement of households out of agriculture, low productive areas into higher agriculture. Currently, such as Malawi and Bangladesh in the global south have been faced with intense climatic shocks, the most recurrent being flash flood and rainfall devastation. In flood-prone areas, where agriculture is the primary, clean and sustainable energy aid climate resilience by enabling regional shifts. Why do we care so much? Changing climate conditions have led to increased household transformation has reduced. 80% of households rely on agriculture, most climate exposed, and 75% of farm productivity is to decline due to climate shocks. Energy created over 16.2 million jobs globally in 2023. Average to 6 hours daily collecting firewood. $1.4 billion lost in annual productivity. Whilst we know the catalytic impact of climate shocks on labor allocation as researched by multiple scholars, and we are aware of the cushioning effect of sustainable energy sources, the extent to which households across different energy poverty levels structurally transform following a climate stress is yet to be understood. My research hinges on 3 development goals: climate action, industry, and clean energy. It is also important that there is also a need for affordable and scalable solutions that enhance livelihood resilience. With the rising vulnerability of rural households due to floods and other climate shocks, energy access is important, even though it is constrained. Also, one size does not fit all. We understand that there is a heterogeneous nature in development, especially in rural communities. There is an increasing inequality in development in the global south. But why? My research will analyze how climate change affects structural transformation at the household level within the microeconomic context and within the context of varying energy poverty levels. It will establish and identify disproportionate transition capabilities between the energy poor and the energy rich. My research also hinges on 3 conceptual frameworks. The Simon Kuznets Foundation, who developed in 1955, pioneered the concept of structural transformation, but at the macro level. I will use microeconomics and look at households and individuals. It also uses the Lewis model of economics growth and development. The Lewis model of structural change tries to explain growth of developing countries in terms of labor transitions between two sectors. I use the IHS-5, which is the Integrated Household Survey collected by Malawi's National Statistics Office, and I will also use geospatial data collected by the University of East Anglia Climate Research Unit. The key variables are labor reallocation, a seasonal flood shock, and I will use controls based on household head attributes and financial attributes. The flood shock variable that I will use allocates 1 to households that have been affected by a flood shock and 0 otherwise. The labor allocation measurement uses a ratio of labor hours, and the energy poverty index is a weighted index that combines electricity access, clean fuel usage, and normalized fuel collection hours. The descriptive statistics tell us or give us a picture of who these households are and how they differ when floods occur. My descriptive statistics show that the households that did experience floods were slightly larger, less educated, and had smaller land holdings. Methodology. My methodology will use these equations to estimate my flood shock on structural transformation, where Y is the labor allocation share, the flood variable is the flood indicator, and it will measure heterogeneity by energy poverty levels. My main estimation tool is the fractional logic model, which was selected due to its ability to take into account the bounded nature of the labor allocation variable. This is just an explanation of the multidimensional energy poverty index, which I said uses a simple weighted method. Propensity score matching is a method that helps us create a balanced sample by making the control and treatment groups comparable using observable characteristics such as household size, land holdings, and other control variables that I did mention before. It will account for the observable co-founders that might introduce bias in our estimation method. The results. These are the results of the PSM that helped us create a balanced sample. As you can see, the raw data showed that there was a variation, or that the control and treatment variable groups were extremely different. But after matching, we are able to compare, for example, apples and apples, because they have the same characteristics. Our main finding shows that there is a significant reduction in labor allocation hours from following a flood. The labor allocation across quantiles, however, reveals an interesting result. We see that those who are rich in energy actually transformed and reallocated 30% of their labor out of agriculture as compared to the average 24%. Those who are energy poor only allocate 22% out of agriculture. What does this tell us? This tells us climate shocks do influence shifts in household economic strategies. However, energy poverty influences who adapts and how quickly. Energy poverty has significant progressive and regressive effects. There's an 8-point inequality, an 8 percentage point inequality in those who have access to energy versus those who do not. The coefficient of transformation, however, is an aggregate, implies that there's a significant rate of transformation, though we see that that is not the case. So the lack of clean energy access does in fact widen the inequality gap in development by making high and low energy poverty households, by making moderate and high energy poverty households agricultural sticky. This transmission mechanism basically illustrates what I have discussed, and that climate shocks do lead to structural transformation, but energy poverty holds us back. Areas for further research. By tracking households over time, we can see, we can capture long-term adaptive dynamics, which might better inform policy. We can also assess how climate shocks and energy jointly shape livelihood transitions by use of a different methodology, such as mediation analysis.
Miss
We can
Nakoma,
also
you have
incorporate
1 minute left. You have 1 minute left.
Okay, thank you. We can also incorporate qualitative research to understand the perceptions of risk and how they influence household transformation decisions. So what is the policy that we need to use? We need to deploy clean energy infrastructure. We need to be able to disaggregate national averages and tailor solutions to specific community contexts. For example, gender biases to reduce development gaps. Thank you. These are the highlights of my research that I will leave you with.
Thank you, Ms. Nakoma, for
I'm done.
the nice presentation. Now it's time for the question and answer session. So please raise your hand if you have any question from the audience or also from the honorable judges. Thank you.
Thank you, Nakoma, for your presentation. Actually, I have one question in your modeling of, I think, multidimensional poverty index. Over there, you have mentioned, like, you have put it equal weighted for all the indicators. So my question is, what happens if you put alternative weights in different indicators? Then how your sensitivity analysis could be implemented based on this your assumption? Have you checked with this different alternative weighted in your modeling? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. That is actually an important point of discussion. The multidimensional energy poverty index that I created was particularly tailored to the energy landscape of Malawi. So in other countries, of course, this might look different. So by weighting, for example, allocating less weight to electricity access, for example, in a country that does not experience bad electricity outages as Malawi, the sensitivity would change, of course, and that would affect the quantiles and the number of households in each quantiles. And that would be an interesting thing to see in terms of its sensitivity. And that is very context sensitive. So I don't know if I've answered the question, but that is, yes, that is what I can provide.
Thank you.
One question I have is why you chose energy only? Because, you know, there could be other indicators. Also, you know, when you are having a shock, the households may undertake different kinds of strategies. Did you consider other strategies also, or you just looked at their energy, you know, access and then did the analysis? And what about the other social capitals? You know, if there is a difference between physical capital or human capital or social capital they have, how would have been, you know, maybe these variables are also important in your regression? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I do agree that these are important factors that I did account for as household level attributes, which I am assuming that is what you're asking about. I did include age, sex, and education. These are all sectors, particularly gender and education. These are all sectors that have an effect on the ability of a household to structurally transform and their ability to be resilient to climate. And in my section for further research, I do include that we should look at gender biases because, for example, in Malawi, strengthening girls' education does strengthen households that are predominantly female-led. So including them as independent variables by themselves, I assumed would overwhelm the estimation and the structure of my research, which is why I decided to include them as control variables. However, you also asked why I focused on energy. Malawi currently is going through a very intense energy crisis, and so are multiple countries in sub-Saharan Africa. However, across the global south, there are different intensities when it comes to social factors. So like I said, a different country might not, a different region might not have an intense energy crisis such as Malawi. They might have they might have worse gender disparities or gender inequalities. So by switching out energy and including gender, or switching out energy and including education, I think we can better contextualize the main message of, or the main estimation here, which was the effect of climate shock on industry, or on structural transformation and on industry. So that is a very interesting area for research, and I do hope to switch up that variable and include gender or education. And I hope that maybe someone else would be able to do that to grow our research body. But yes, that is my answer to that question.
Any other question from the audience? Okay, then. So thank you again, Ms. Nakoma, for the wonderful presentation and responding to each of the questions. So now we invite Mr. Rafiul Karim and Muhibul Hassan Arnob to present their work titled From Delta to Cities, the Gendered Exploitation of Climate Migrants in Bangladesh's Urban Informal Economy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Rafiul Karim. I did my post-graduation from the Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka. With me is my co-author, Muhibul Hassan Arnob. He is working as a field researcher at BIGD. So before I start, I would like to inform the judges that this is still a working paper. So we have a room for improvements. So here I would like to proceed. So our title, From Delta to Cities, Gendered Exploitation of Climate Migrants in Bangladesh's Urban Informal Economy, is a demographic journey of millions of people in Bangladesh. So it's a transition from one crisis to another, from an environmental crisis to a crisis that is shaped by urban informal economy. So if we look at the background, we see that Bangladesh is the seventh most climate vulnerable country in the world, according to a 2021 data. And if we see the graph, we can see that the number of people displacing each year. Sorry, it's not the number of people, but it's actually the cases displaced each year. So if you look at the graph, we see that in 2019 and 2020, when Bangladesh was hit by two major cyclones, the number reached almost 4 million displacements. So from here, we can see that Bangladesh is hit by major cyclones and other natural disasters, which places migrants to urban informal economy. So if you see that the number of migrants mostly move to Dhaka, with Dhaka slum consisting more than 50% of migrants, and slums from Chittagong and Khulna respectively consisting migrants of 54% and 70%. And if you look at these slums, we will see that there are gendered exploitation. Men face different types of hazards like labor-driven physical labor, construction worker, transport, and females, they face a different type of problems like low wages, sexual harassment, insecure domestic and garment work. So we are arguing that there is a key policy gap of governance and labor frameworks that do not adequately cover this. So if we see that there are types of natural disasters, seriously impacted natural disasters like cyclones, like Cedar, Ayla, Amphan, these were hit, and numbers of people were displaced. And there are there are also slow disasters like floods and riverbank erosion. These types of disasters also displace people, but the effect takes place more slowly than the immediate effects. So if we look at the urban population, so in 1972, only 8% of the total population lived in urban areas, where compared to in 2018, we see that almost 35% of the entire population lives in urban area. And according to estimations by World Bank data, the number will reach almost 45% in 2030 and 56% in 2050, making the urban population of Bangladesh 112 million by 2050. And most of these migrants go into places like Dhaka or Chittagong, where the population is already more than what we can consume. So what are our central argument? We are arguing that the struggle of climate migrants in Bangladesh is not just a simple environmental issues. These are fundamental crises of urban level labor governance and the systematic failure to policies to regulate the informal economy and the protection and protect the workers. So if we look at the trigger and the crisis here, the natural disasters work as a matchbox which fires the entire thing, and the urban labor governance and the informal economy works as a fuel which further heightens the crisis. So we argue that there are sharply gendered pathways of exploitation. As we said before, for men it's labor intensive, physical, hazardous and low mobility jobs, and for women it is basically sexual harassment, low salary and other types of issues that we will discuss in the next slides. So if we look at that, an overwhelming of 96.6% of the total women are employed informally in the informal economy. So they are concentrated in the lowest paid jobs like garment sector or household chores, and these types of jobs where there is no job security involved. So data collection method, we also collected some primary data for the triangulation of our secondary data. These are based on just two slums, in Kollanpur slum and in Tezgaon slums. The samples were very small. We just wanted to triangulate the secondary data. So that's why we conducted two FGDs and in-depth interview of 10 climate migrants in these two slums. We also conducted a 5 KII for our policy recommendations so that we can triangulate with our secondary sources. And as secondary sources, we collected data from LFS, HIES, BBS, and ILO and World Bank publications. So if we look at the total number of climate migrants in past, present, and future, so in 2020, the number of climate migrants in Bangladesh is almost 7.01 million, and almost and the household number is 1.3 million. And according to World Bank estimation, the number will reach 19 point close to 20 million, which is double the number of what we have today. So annual migration and city level force, and we can see that roughly 4 to 5 lakh people move to Dhaka each year, making it almost 1 to 2,000 new population in Dhaka in every single day. Also, other cities like Khulna, Rajshahi, Chittagong also faces dire crisis. And if we look at this graph, we see that these climate migrants majorly move to Dhaka with 42%, and Gazipur and Narayanj comes second with 25%, and Chittagong, Khulna, and other cities are also there. And if you look at the urban informal economy, we see that almost female members are involved in garment work and domestic work mostly, where males are involved in transportation and construction and other types of work. So informal jobs, these lack legal protections, health insurance, and other types of issues like age guarantees. So female are mostly involved in this work where there is no guarantee of formal work. So occupational profile of urban informal economy, if we look at that, we see that almost 20% are involved in street vending and trade, and followed by rickshaw and transport and construction, day labor work, and domestic work. So scale, and as mentioned earlier, that 84.9% of the entire economy works in the informal economy, while in Dhaka 79.6% of jobs are informal. And as I said before, 96.6% of employed women work in the informal sector. And if we look at the gender occupational profile, here is an important factor. The urban female earns less than the rural female workers. I'm requesting just 2 minutes more. if we see that the urban female workers earn less than the rural female workers, and the urban male workers earn 3 times more than the urban female workers. So if we look at the male migrants in low mobility occupation, as I said before, they face physical exhaustion and other types of crises. So we come to our main argument, the economic vulnerability of the female migrants. So if we look at that, it's a survey from LFS. Male migrants are in 79.9% of male migrants are involved in informal data, where 96.6% are involved in informal economy. And if we here is a tech cloud that we generated from the 2 FGDs we conducted in the slums of Dhaka. So here the main issues faced by the female migrants are harassment, low salary, poor living conditions, overcrowding, and discrimination. The main issues they have faced. So in another data, approximately 16.6% of the domestic workers reported facing sexual harassment, reflecting both the gender nature of domestic labor. And if we talk about systematic workplace abuse, almost 60% women face wage disparity, complain about wage disparity, and more than 70% complained about no social safety nets. And another major issue is that there is no childcare facilities for the women. Almost more than 80% of women complained about that, and there is no privacy, and there is also food and water shortage for the climate migrants. So labor policy and governance gap. If we look at the data,
Mr. Karim, your time's up.
I will just requesting 1 minute. I have the recommendation. So labor and policy gaps. If you look at the policies like NAPA or Labor Act, these does not include informal economy. Plus, these policies do not actually cover climate migrants. These are separated like urban informal economy or climate migrants. But these do not cover those who are coming from rural to urban areas. And if we have two types of recommendation. One is actionable priorities, and here is a quote that if you want to save Dhaka, you must take Bangladesh out of Dhaka. So our concentration is mostly concentrated on Dhaka cities, with almost 42% of climate migrants moving to Dhaka. So if we want to solve these issues, we must restructure our urban absorption. Next, we must formalize and protect the informal workforce. Lastly, we must build a data-driven governance system. And these are the strategies for migrant resilience. We must use the strategies of protection, prevention, and promotion for female migrants. Lastly, when we did this research, we found several issues with climate migration data. First of all, there are underreporting and misclassification, and different types of organization use different methodologies, which made it harder for us to do the data analysis. And there's a lack of also gender disintegrated data. And lastly, our research gaps and future direction. As we said earlier, we had a very short sample. We just wanted to triangulate with our secondary sources. So we just conducted 2 FGDs and 10 IDIs. So if we get the chance, as I said before, it is a working paper, so we are working on it. And we look forward to conduct more FGDs and more slums of Dhaka and outside of Dhaka, so that we can make it a rigorous study. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rafiul. So now it's time for the question and answer sessions.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice presentation. I really enjoyed it, but I have a few questions. Number one is, how did you define climate migrant?
So I did my master thesis on urban social safety net. So I already had experienced that particularly in Kollanpur and Tezgah slums, there are a lot of residents who live in slum are basically climate migrants. They migrated from regions like Bhola, Borishal, in that sort of area. So in that slums, almost 80%, according to my research, 80% of the slum population are climate migrants. So when we did that research, we identified the normal slum population and the climate migrants. So that's how I started my research from the scratch.
So are you saying, like, you're referring to this research, right?
Yes.
So my question is again, how did you define climate migrant? It's not like what you are saying now is your understanding, but research, you have to have an operational definition that those following these inclusion or exclusion criterias, those individuals to according to your research methodology, are climate migrants?
So-
Did you have any listing or yeah?
If I could answer that.
Yeah, please.
When we conducted the interviews at the slums, we asked the respondents about their motivation of moving out. So we claimed that that is how we came to the point that they are climate migrants, because most of their motivation was related to climate change or factors related to climate.
I
Can
would
you
like to
mention-
add,
yeah.
these were not economic factors. They were forced to move because of climate-induced disasters like cyclones or floods. So these were not voluntary migration, rather they were forced migration due to climatic factors.
So the reason I'm asking this, because when it comes to climate migration, the issue of climate migration, we need to define, because it's a very vague space. So honestly, my understanding is you guys don't have it written anywhere, like it's from your understanding and in the field what you felt. But for your research to be a good one, you should have a list like those coming from these areas, the time of migration, how long, like is it new migrants 10 years ago? Was it cyclone? Was it, like losing their job because of cyclone? Because it's a very broad definition. And also for climate migration, there are two types of migrations. I'm not sure if you know. One is slow onset and one is
Immediately that
sudden
triggers, yes.
onset. So that you also need to define what type of migrants you chose.
We had a set of drivers that influences the migrants to migrate. So we had to delete that slide because already we had almost 24 slides, but we had it in there. So,
Okay.
but we deleted
But
it
then
later.
again, the secondary data, was it data on migration or climate migration?
Climate migration data.
Okay.
These were very limited data. We had a very hard time finding those data, and we had to find data from World Bank mainly because there were not major sources that were available for us.
So see what definition they followed there, then for your qualitative, you can follow that. Okay, so I think, and also another thing I felt is like formal versus informal, the justifications you shared, like the recommendations, they are very good. How you showed that how there is a gendered bias in terms of working here in the urban city, that's also great. What I found a bit difficult is the findings are more about migrants in the city, not necessarily climate migrants. So that's one area I found a little bit weak, but clearly it was nice. Thank you.
It's still in the working progress. As we said before, we didn't have much secondary data to work on, so we need to go to the fields to gather this data from. So we are still working on it, and I believe that we will go to fields more so that we can collect the exact climate migrants data.
Well, thank you.
One thing I want to ask, you showed many tables or graphics. Most of it, I don't know whether it was from secondary sources or was it from your own study, because you didn't cite the sources. Okay, you must cite sources wherever it is taken from other studies, especially. And second thing is, you did recommendations. I find it intuitive, but your sample size is so low to make any generalization. Okay, so I think you have to take a much bigger sample to make any generalization and policy recommendation. And what I say, these are hypotheses, or not into that level. So also you should look at some theoretical framework. There are multiple theoretical frameworks that explains migration, and you have to base one of them and then explain whatever your observations are. So you need to work on the methodology also. Yeah.
Thank you for the recommendation. I would like to add one point. We did the field research not for the generalizability, rather than triangulating our secondary data and including human experiences. In order to generalize our data, we need to do more field visits inside and outside of Dhaka. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Karim. I would not extend this session further, so I will keep my questions for the discussion session later on.
Thank you so much.
So now it's time to hear from Miss Marie Noel Gomez from Senegal. She will be presenting her work titled Empowering Rural Women for Climate Resilient Food Security, Nutrition Sensitive Adaptation Strategies in West Africa. So please, Ms. Gomez, if you are there, you can start your presentation now.
Mr. Chair, presenter 3 and 4 is not here. Please go to the presenter 5.
Okay. So in that case, Ms. Ruth Harawa from Malawi will be presenting her work titled Building Resilient Homes in Malawi, Training Local Builders to Reduce Disaster Risk. So Ms. Harawa, so if you are there, you can start your presentation now.
All right, let me just share my screen. Okay. I hope you're able to see it.
Yes, we see it, but not the presentation. Please click on the presentation.
All right. Okay.
And open the presentation.
Open
please.
the presentation, please.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do. Okay.
Stop sharing and then again share, and after sharing, click on the presentation. Press the share button and then on your presentation.
Are you able to see it
Yes,
now?
yes. Make it full screen.
Okay. All right. Okay, so my name is Ruth Harawa, a third-year student at Malawi University of Science and Technology, and I'm studying disaster risk management. So today I'll be presenting my paper titled Building Resilient Homes in Malawi, Training Local Builders to Reduce Disaster Risk. Okay, so maybe just to mention, this is a research that is based on, or that focuses on community-based approaches to building resilience. Okay, Malawi is one of the countries in Southern Africa that is disaster prone, and it faces a number of disasters. I think one of the major outstanding one is the Cyclone Freddy that happened in 2023 that destroyed a number of homes. So I had an opportunity to volunteer at Zomba District Council in the disaster risk
Ms.
management.
Harawa, can you please make it full screen? We cannot see it clearly. So
All
you are
right.
right.
So you are right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so as I was saying that when I was volunteering at Zomba District Council, when we went to do the validation of the number of houses that were destroyed, one of the things that I noted was that most of these buildings were poorly built. So yeah, for example, as the picture that is being shown on that slide, it's a picture that I took myself of one of the houses that was destroyed in Zomba, in Zomba. So as you can see, the house was built, but then it used poor building materials, and the house was also not built on a good place. So when disasters happen, such as floods or storms, these houses are easily destroyed. And that is due to poor construction and poor roofing, as well as the use of non-durable materials. So after that, I was inspired and I did a research that was mostly based on secondary data and literature review. So I also did some comparative case studies looking at countries like in Mozambique, Kenya, and also Bangladesh. So the key findings that I found was that 80% of rural homes are self-built and there is no code compliance. Most of the people that build these houses are people who have not been properly trained to build. And when disasters happen, these are the same people who come and ask for relief items. Government policies exist, but they're not being enforced. The Malawi government, through the UN Habitat for Humanity, they have a code of conduct on how a house should be built. But then these code of conducts or building codes are not adhered to, especially in the rural communities that are mostly affected by these disasters. But then what I also found is that most communities are willing to adopt resilient practices if there is training and materials are available. So there is a policy gap. There's a policy and practice gap. The policies are there, but then people are not practicing it. So training builders can help to turn this policy into action. Also, looking at how other countries, I think especially in Mozambique and Kenya, and also I think in Bangladesh, it shows that resilience training can cut reconstruction costs. Also in the disaster field, one of the things that we believe in is that if you invest in resilience or in mitigation measures, I think also just in support of what the chair said in the beginning, that when we are investing in mitigation or resilient practices, we are going to save what we do on building back. So a summary of the insights is that a weak construction is the one that causes most of these disasters, because if these people can build strong houses or strong structures, when disasters happen, some of these structures can withstand and therefore will not be there to not more resources will be spent on recovery. Also, the other thing is that when we do community training, we're going to enhance resilience. I know when we're talking about resilience, the main topics that are talked about are livelihoods, agriculture, but also let's also look at the structures. And when we do this, we're going to create jobs by training the communities and as well as the builders, and it is also in line with SDG 11 and SDG 13. So limitations of my study and future research. So this study was mainly based on desk research and secondary data, and I've not really done it much on the ground. When I went the last time, I didn't have enough time to talk to the people and ask them about what they think and how they build their houses. But I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to work on. And there were some data inconsistencies. I think that's one thing in Malawi that we lack most of this data. So I would, as a way to go forward, I would want to try to do this research on the field, and also try to conduct the cost-benefit analysis of what if we train a builder and he or she builds strong houses, and also look at when we compare to what has been happening previously. So, in conclusion, training builders is key in disaster risk reduction, especially in ensuring that we have strong infrastructures. Also, we need to be combining community empowerment with policy enforcement. That is going to reduce losses, and it is also in line with Malawi Vision 2063. So, yeah, that's it about me. And yeah, these were my references. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harawa, for
Thank you, Ms.
the nice
Harawa, for
presentation.
the nice presentation.
So now it's time for the
So
question
now
answer
it's
session.
time for the
So
question
if you
and
have
answer
any
session.
question from the judges.
Thank you, Miss Ruth. I have no question actually. I have one suggestion or observation you can take for your future research. It's about in one of your slides you have mentioned that 80% of the rural household has been self-built. So also the things I have found from your discussion is that you want to provide training program for the builders. So now I have a doubt how giving training program to the builder, so ultimately the household or the person who is going to invest, he or she is going to accept this suggestion by the builders. So maybe you could have considered like combining both the household and the builders, or like the stakeholders has to be both the parties, so that if the builders give any kind of suggestion to build this type of resilient housing, so the household may also accept this, because ultimately it is about the financing by the household. Builder may suggest it, but ultimate decision maker will be the household. So you can take this consideration in your future research. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll surely take that up.
So I have one comment as well. So often, instead of training the builders, you can just train the people in those communities to take some preparedness measures. Like especially in Bangladesh, in the coastal areas, we have seen that just raising a dike, like it's kind of a barrier made out of the mud. So just a dike can reduce the habitat damage significantly, or protecting the habitat with some plastic wrapper or something can reduce the damage, household or habitat damage significantly as well. So there are two things I think in your presentation. One is use different type of material to build the houses, or use different kind of coping mechanism for the existing habitats. So you can do a comparative study to see which type of, you don't have to do it for your own study area. You can just do some meta-analysis and see what has been done before and what type of reduction in the damages to the habitat has been implied or happened before in similar type of setup in the coastal or in some vulnerable areas of different countries. So these are my comments. I would like to give the floor to Honorable Judge, Dr. Amjad.
Yeah, one thing surprised me is about the insurance itself, because in South Asia, in the communities, the penetration of insurance is really low. So, do you think these people actually paid insurance premium, or is it like a government mechanism? I just wanted to know.
Okay, so on the insurance, I think it's really not one of the major things. I think it was just cited in one of the reports that I was reading. But then when it comes to the rural communities, I think most of them are not really into insuring their properties or even their houses. But then maybe it can also just be a concern when for the insurance when it happens in urban areas, because most people in urban areas do insure their properties. But mostly for the rural ones, I think most of them are not into insurance.
So I think we do not have any further questions. So now I invite. So thank you, Ms. Harawa, for the nice presentation and answering all the questions. So now I invite Mr. Sanjay Daramo.
Mr. Chair, sorry
Yes,
to interrupt you. We only have one presenter left, presenter number 7.
Presenter number 7, okay. So in that case, I would invite Mr. Gerald Nyanjua Amolo from Kenya, and he will be presenting his paper titled Designing the Community's Nature-Based Solution for Climate Adaptation in Informal Riverfront Settlements. Mr. Amolo, it's your floor. Thank you.
Mr. Amolo, can you hear us?
Hello, thank you very much. I can hear you. Just a confirmation. Can you hear me on your side?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go straight to sharing my screen. And can you all
Yes.
see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So my paper is titled Climate Adaptation in Informal Riverfront Settlements, focusing on nature-based solutions. And so just to start us off, in terms of urbanization in African cities and to Nairobi, Madare River. And this study applies what you call the locally led adaptations and nature-based solution in trying to restore the ecosystem along Madare River. And some of the key priorities that we really focused on was flood control along the riverbanks, the green space access and livelihood of the informal communities around the river. And some of our proposed solutions as landscape architects who was involved in this project was the riparian restoration. We have a community managed wetlands and multifunctional green spaces. And all these have been demonstrated demonstrates the value of what we call a community-driven nature-based solution in advancing climate justice and sustainable urban development. So in terms of a bit of a context in sub-Saharan Africa, we have experienced rapid and unplanned urbanization for a period of over 30 plus years, which has also led to weak land regulation and poor environmental protection. And in terms of piloting rivers, which once served as as centers for lives and culture in urban setups, are now polluted and also encroached by informal settlements. And some of the challenges we realize in our informal settlements are degradation of riparian lands with insecure land tenure systems. We also have limited access to facilities like water, sanitation, and also the drainage systems. And in a broader aspect, we have the climate change aspect of it, which intensifies, and this causes flooding and also extreme weather events that can be felt along the riverfront areas. So on to Madare, which is our focus. Along Madare riverfront, we have over 200,000 people. And some of the problems that really occur in Madare are poor drainage. We have solid waste accumulation from the informal settlements and riparian encroachment, which happens due to lack of proper housing by informal settlers. We also have frequent floods, which cause property loss, disease outbreak, and livelihood disruptions. And all this with congestion causes what is termed as lack of public open spaces that affect community well-being and cohesion. And so there have been so much approaches by the government and some of the other organizations in trying to solve this, but some of the limitations to their conventional approaches include hard engineering, which only focuses narrowly on flood control, but does not focus on the informal settlements where all the problems emanates from. And again, it also displays vulnerable households and sewer links that link everything to ecosystem services around the waterfront. So in terms of emerging solution in nature-based solutions and locally led adaptations, nature-based solutions restore natural systems to manage floods, enhance biodiversity, and also improve the health and well-being of the residents living in those areas. And the success of nature-based solution depends on the local context, government, and the community ownership. Yeah, locally led adaptation also empowers affected communities to design, implement, and maintain the intervention because they're part of that. And this study also focuses and contributes by combining locally led adaptations and nature-based solutions, the transformative strategies for Madare River regeneration. And the aim, as I said, was to restore riparian ecosystem, reduce flood, and create green public spaces and livelihoods. So I'll go faster to finish this off. And to the objective to determine community awareness, assess potential for nature-based implementation along the riverfront, and to develop a collaborative, locally led adaptations and a nature-based design model for the informal settlements. So integrating NBS and locally led adaptation for urban riverfront resilience, urban rivers provide key ecosystem services like we have flood control, water purification, cooling, biodiversity, and recreational, all that in our urban context. And in most African cities, most of the informal settlements are pushed towards the riparian zones of the rivers that degrade, that lead to degrading of the ecosystems and heightening the climate risks of the river ecosystems. So the impact of all this is shrinking riparian buffers, a floodplain and wetlands are lost due to housing and waste disposal, and we also have increased flooding, pollution, and health hazard. Ecosystem service decline, which causes the reduced cooling by water, water filtration, and also habitat value for both flora and fauna. So some of the solutions in terms of the nature-based include wetlands, riparian buffers, introduction of rain gardens, urban forest, bioswales, and hybrid green-gray system that works together. And we also provide co-benefits such as flood reduction, biodiversity, having more flora and fauna on site, cooling, public health, and livelihoods. And all this, we faced barriers such as legal and land tenure issues with the government and some of the CBOs around. We also have a short-term funding and weak technical capacity, since this is a locally led approach.
Mr. Amolo, sorry to interject.
Led
Mr. Amolo, sorry to interject, but you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Just in terms of locally led adaptations, we have empower local actors. And so maybe I'll just move first because it was a design and we did the design which we also piloted. We did a pilot of a 150-meter stretch of the Madare settlement. And maybe I can just go quick into the Madare River and some of the site photos as it was. And we also have that. So these are some of the community priorities in terms of community engagement. The groups wrote down what they needed to be considered in the design. So we have the proposed frameworks and the key design elements. And so onto the plan, this was the overall master plan. Then we have the community model, community engagement, working together to come up with a master plan, the model. Then we have some of the drawings which were further divided into 5 zones, zone 1 to 5. Here we have some of the detailed plans and some of the working drawings. And on to the last slide, governance and participation. We intend to establish a Madare resilience community that will manage the Madare settlement front, that include residents, NGO, and county representative. And so to conclude, and some of the recommendation is a locally led adaptation and nature-based solution integration, which enhance climate resilience and social equity. And policies should support co-design, long-term funding, and maintenance, and also scale up successful models across other Nairobi River fronts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Amolo. So now it's time for the question and answer session. If you have any question, you can ask your question now.
One question I have is about the locally led adaptation, because you mentioned that I can see the NBS angle and also the co-design part. That's clear, but the locally led adaptation has 8 principles, and I'm not seeing how you use this principle into account. Can you just share some ideas towards it?
In terms of locally led adaptations, we have community-based organizations that already live and are trying to do something along the riverfront. So they have their own way of like trying to maintain the riverfront, and that's what we are trying to build on. We are trying to build on what the communities around the riverfront already use as a means of sustainable development along the riverfront. But we come with a new perspective as landscape architects and now designers to try to bring it up and have it as a more sustainable means. I hope I've answered the question.
One feedback, you should check locally led adaptation and its principles. There are 8 principles that is universally, accepted. And when you claim that is an LLA, oriented study, you have to somehow substantiate with the global norms. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Amolo. Now I invite our next presenter.
We don't have any other presenter.
Okay.
So this was the last one.
Okay, great. So now it's time to hear from everyone. It's an open floor discussion now. So if you have any comment, any suggestion, or any question, you can ask your question now. So we have quite some time. You can keep preparing your questions. In the meantime, I would like to invite our honorable judges to introduce themselves and speak a few words on the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Session Chair. Myself, MD Abdus Sattar Moin, lecturer, Department of Economics, East West University. So this is the first hands-on experience as a judge in a program like this, actually. So thanks to CPD inviting me as a judge in this program. And as our main discussion for today is about climate change, so currently it is one of the burning topic around the world, especially country like Bangladesh. And as we have seen or we have listened few of this presentation, that climate change is not actually a topic of environment. It's a multi-dimensional, and it is actually connected with economic, health, green job creation, as mentioned by our session chair at the earlier speech. So yes, it's a good experience for me to learn and gain some extra experience, a part of my daily job activities. So thanks again, organizers, CPD, and congratulate to all the participants who presented their paper here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Moin, for introducing yourself. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Farzana Misha, Associate Professor, Lead Climate Change, Environment, and Health Hub of the BRAC James P. Grant School of Public Health, BRAC University. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. First of all, thanks to CPD for inviting me here. I really enjoyed the presentations because even though we're working in climate change for the last few years at JPT School of Public Health, so as Dr. Moin mentioned, that climate change itself, it's a big issue, and it's sectoral, and it needs multidisciplinary approach to address this issue. We mostly work in the health part of the how climate change is impacting the health, but today I really enjoyed listening to all the presentations. It gave me some new perspectives as well, and it was great being here. And yeah, I hope CPT will be arranging such initiatives moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Misha. So now I would like to invite to speak a few words, Dr. T.S. Amjad Babu from Sustainable Agri-Food Systems, agricultural economist, and he is doing the modeling and targeting part of as an agricultural economist. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm working with International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, or CIMIT. Our headquarters is in Mexico, and we have offices in 18 countries. So I'm happy to see here the presentation from Malawi, Kenya, and Bangladesh, and all of these countries are, areas we work, and that's happy to see, a presentation from Malawi and Kenya, especially. Here in Bangladesh, we are well aware of what is happening here, and the diversity of, there were many presentations which did not happen, but still I think that there is a big diversity of topics here, and we can see that how climate is a overarching theme, not only for agriculture, but also in building, in energy, and migration. So what I see is that the new students are taking new topics and challenges, but I think they should be also aware of new methods upcoming, and how the world is changing right now. For example, the machine learning or other technologies, assessment. There are many opportunities right now, and they should jump ahead into this kind of work. Otherwise, they'll be left behind, and the world will move ahead. So I see that, especially those students working in developing countries, they have to think about the methodology parts more seriously, and advance their analytical techniques and their topics. I see that they are wonderful and their insights are wonderful, but how they approach the problem, the method, is something which needs improvement. Yeah, that's what I got from today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Babu. So I would like to say a few words as a concluding remarks. As we have seen that there are different types of papers, starting from economics to climate, to gender issues and health and different other, in fact, infrastructure as well. So there were different dimensions that the climate change have been affecting for last couple of decades. Especially, I would like to share a few of my experience from my recent visit to the coastal areas of Bangladesh. So we have a project like Dr. Babu was talking about. There is machine learning and everything. So we have been trying to predict the tidal surge of the coastal areas, not the sea level, inside of the communities, like in the rivers and riverbanks. So we have seen that for the last few decades, the occupation of the communities has been drastically changing. I mean, if you went to the Shatker areas a couple of years back, or like 10 to 15 years back, there were a lot of agricultural lands, but you cannot find a single agricultural land right now right beside the riverbanks because of the intrusion of the saline water. So the agricultural productivity has been almost non-existent. So everyone is changing their occupation from farmer to a day laborer in a shrimp farm or a fishery farm right now. So this has caused a huge problem in terms of inequality, in terms of gender balance, in terms of health. All these things are being affected because of this imbalance in the coastal areas. So this is just one example of the climate change. There has been many examples. I mean, this is the rural area. We can also, you can see the impact of the climate change in the urban slums. So all these different issues have been coming up. So it's beautiful to see lot of different types of researchers, from different backgrounds, have been trying to address different issues that are induced by the climate change. I would agree with Dr. Babu as well on the fact that the motive, the objective of the research are fantastic, but there are a lot of room for improvement, and that's the purpose of a conference. So hopefully you have received some good feedback from the judges and from the audience as well. So with that, I would like to conclude our session today if there is no further question or comments. Okay then, so I think we don't, sorry, is there any question from the online? I don't think so, right? Okay. So thank you everyone for being patient and for your wonderful comments and your questions as well. And thank you thanks goes to all the presenters as well for wonderfully presenting their work and answering all the questions that you had during the time of after the presentation. So thank you everyone and have a nice day.
Thank you, judges and the participants online. We are now closing the session. Thank you for joining.